Hey, there's no shame in trying things that people ain't never tried before.
What's going on? Boys, today we're discussing NTR and Absolution. NTR disgusts and terrifies guys, to the point they won't acknowledge it, because to acknowledge it is to acknowledge its possibility, and to acknowledge its possibility acknowledges those feelings, the worthlessness, wanting to crawl into your skin and die, or rather to just stop existing. And it is dreadful. But if something's mere existence provokes such a substantial response, it's worth investigating, which is what we're doing today. We're actually investigating and discussing a couple things, but NTR is the big kicker, the one that attracts and repulses people best, so we're using that one as bait. And our springboard. Now, there are some people who like NTR, who are into it. They like literally losing their partner. I'm not into it. I don't like it. But I am around it, and I get off on it abstractly. More, about twice a month, I'd say, I feel compelled to look at it. So, in one of these cycles, I'm reading some Japanese entertainment, wondering why I'm doing this. I feel awful. I don't like this, but I'm getting off on it. What is happening? So I dissected it. Am I getting off on someone quotes better doing something you can't? No. I'm getting off on someone who's supposed to care about you's cruelty or apathy or unawareness toward you, and your helplessness against it. Because once you're stabbed, right? You can't revert the stabbing, or you can't undo their will to stab. It's just tragic. A hurricane is tragic. You can't do anything to stop it. It just sweeps in and destroys everything, and nothing is the same afterward. And when you isolate it to those feelings, it does look like the things I normally get off on. Tragedy, suffering, fear. Someone you care about consciously hurting you to spite you, or someone who cares about you unconsciously or unawarely, unknowingly hurting you, or someone who cares about you being forced to consciously hurt you. Not to say I only get off on tragedy. Boys, there are many sub-levels, branches, variations, feelings, good feelings, moving in many different directions. There are so many conclusions potentially to be drawn. I don't even know if this conclusion we're shooting for now is right, but we're going for it anyway. But why the magnetic attraction? Well, I think it's because it absolves you of responsibility. And when I say responsibility, I mean your self-perceived need to fix a situation, or excuse someone's behavior, or stick around or do anything. Responsibility is a really awful joke that I really need to make a video about, but seeing the situation fucked so sideways and irreparably damaged absolves that bullshit responsibility you think you have, and you're free to go. I mean, you're always free to go, but that tragedy excuses you. For example, in hindsight, I realize I didn't have the best friends growing up. To be fair, I wasn't the best friend either, because my home life gave me an inferiority complex, which made me not a good person, which is inexcusable even if you're a kid, but still. And I would always become obsolete to my friends. The term was gateway friend. Someone unpopular befriends me, we hang out for a while, then they become popular and ditch me. Or in many circumstances, keep me on the periphery, hoping they'll give me any attention. Because I craved it. All I craved was attention. And agency as a kid. But, again, I digress. And I would never tell them to fuck themselves, because I had an inferiority complex. I thought it was my fault. I mean, granted, I was a loser, so fair enough, I suppose. But watching people ignore you or keep you around more as an accessory than a friend, while you rig ways to try and win their attention back, hurts a lot. And that's not a good situation. And I didn't know how to sever ties because I thought it was my fault. Their drifting away or ignoring me or sidelining me was not their being assholes. It was my inadequacies as a human being. Which is not the case. Again, I was a loser, but at heart, I was a good friend. I try. I still try. I tried and I still try. And that goes, or that conundrum goes 20-fold for my father. When you're a kid, your dad is your hero, and everything he says is golden, and if anyone disagrees, they're wrong. And if he says something you disagree with, you are wrong, or you're miscommunicating. There was a stretch where every time my dad and I disagreed on anything, he would call me an asshole. A little asshole. A punk kid asshole, right? And I thought, what I'm saying, or in these situations, logically, there's a reason I'm doing or saying what I'm doing. And your dad's your dad, so his logic is also sound. So your disagreement comes not from his illogical shittiness, it comes from your bad communication skills. If he takes it wrong, it's because you spoke it wrong. Right? Because your dad's golden, and you want to be just like your dad. and you want to be golden. So if there is miscommunication, it's your fault. So as a kid, I read self-help books. I read a lot of self-help books about communicating, because when a disagreement happens, the moment someone calls you a name, it makes you angry, and it makes you want to fight that. Right? So if someone calls you an asshole, the original point, the original disagreement is lost. Now you're focusing on this. It's like a magician tricking you with sleight of the hand. And at that point, you're angry. So if you react in anger at being called a name, you are an asshole. And if you say you're not an asshole, then you're acknowledging that some assholishness is happening on your part that you need to deny, making you an asshole. And it made conversations and disagreements impossible. So my big goal as a kid was to get my dad to stop calling me an asshole so we could logically or rationally, or at least without malice, disagree and compromise, or come to a conclusion that's not awful. So I put together what I considered to be a sound, substantial argument about why his calling me an asshole made us, or our getting along, impossible, and asking him to stop. And I even threw in an apology and a concession, saying, maybe if you're calling me an asshole, you're my dad and you're logical, you think straight and everything you say is golden. So if you're calling me an asshole, maybe I'm doing something assholish that I don't recognize, and I apologize for it. Please tell me what it is and I'll try to do better. Which in hindsight was stupid. You don't apologize for things you aren't doing wrong. Anyway, I hit him with the argument. And it took about 20 minutes, and I had poured my soul into this for weeks. And I'd been reading these self-help books for months. And I just wanted him to stop calling me an asshole. And at the very end of it, he says, well, maybe I wouldn't call you an asshole if you weren't such a fucking asshole. And my dad died that day. Or my image of my dad died that day. Right? And that's when I learned how to sever things. Because if the person most important to you claims they play by rules and you engage them on that system of rules, and in that rule system beat them, or not even beat them, because I wasn't combating anything. I was just trying to make something unhappy stop, and they flip the board, and you realize all the rules were illusions. They were fake. They didn't matter. Walking away is the only thing to do. It's the smartest thing to do. Why subject yourself to a losing system? Why validate it? Why struggle in it? It hurts. It's tragic. but it grounds you in the real and lets you move on. Like ripping off a band-aid. And it lets you pursue what actually matters, which is righteousness and anime divinity, of course. And that's what NTR does. It's an excuse for you to go. Or maybe not an excuse for you to go. You don't need excuses to go. That's just a tour de force version. Shit's fucked. Bail. And I still do this. I keep receipts of every time in relationships or with friends or in communities or in systems I notate, I keep receipts of all the times I play by the rules. So when I want to leave, I can. Not that I need those receipts as excuses to leave, but I like knowing I did everything in my power to be a good son, a good friend, a good student, a good employee, a good human, before I bail. I did everything that I should have done, and the failure is theirs, not mine, if I pull out. Not that it matters, or not that they care, because humans are a subspecies of whatever we're supposed to be, but I care. Not in the sense that I care and I think people should play by these false, shitty cliches, but it feels good knowing you can beat them in their own game. It's fun to play their games and win. Like speaking academically, right? I don't like uppity, hoity-toity intellectual speak. But speaking academically, or more academically than academics, is fun. Superiority in systems designed for others' superiority is fun. So yeah, suffering validates your suffering and enables your action. That's what your girl getting fucked does. But Skimmerlit, what does that have to do with the burping and the pissing and the shitting and the vor and the gore and the disempowerment? Skimmerlit, what does that have to do with any of that? Well, man, I don't know. Stop laying all this on me all at once, or I might just have to make you fuck my wife so I can bail without paying whatever you're supposed to pay. Don't make me do it. I will at gunpoint force you to fuck my wife. Don't make me do it. But that about rippity wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. Ooh. Like if you enjoyed, because that helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. How do you prep your bull? Boys, and better question, why isn't your bull prepped right now? He's waiting. And you're just holding them back. Get to it, or get gone. Boys, but thanks again for watching, everybody, really. We have a lot of fun on this channel, so much fun, in fact. I found 2 water bottles, thermos-type water bottles, made in China, brand new with the paper boys still in them, the warning labels and all that. And they smell like bleach and death and chemicals. And they're made in China, so that's probably true. And I washed them out knowing full well I would never use them. And I will throw them away. I will throw them away. But they're still sitting there right now. And there are 2 of them. And that's a lot of bottles, boys. That's 2 bottles. That's less than a few, but quite a couple. Sort of like your wife and the bull. Quite the couple, right? We can fill them up with fun. Like... Well, yeah. Come up with your own joke. That's how much fun we have on this channel. Boys, and I look forward to doing this with you guys in the future.